Hey guys, so this here is going to be a video that addresses one of the videos made by the Hebrew Israelites, and specifically the Sicarii Dallas sect. They have apparently seen some of my videos or seen some of the comments I've made on some of their videos, and they saw one of the videos I made concerning their claims on Deuteronomy 28:68, which you'll see are on my channel, the Polymagetic here. I actually have three of them right here. Right here we see in 1, 2, and 3. And these are three videos I had to make regarding their understanding and their claims on Deuteronomy 28:68. And they made a video here, which we're going to go to. That's it right here. Deuteronomy 28:68 is not talking about the transatlantic slave trade, question mark. And they were making this video in response to what I had said about their video, or one of the, or their claims rather, about this passage. Now I know it's about me because they named me out in the video. I got the honors of that, and you'll see that here in just a minute. So what I wanted to do is, this is my first critique of an actual video, so it's kind of impromptu. I really didn't go back and watch. I saw this video back when it came out about a month ago. I haven't really looked over it a whole lot, but I wanted to address some of the things, because if you see their video here, it's 31 minutes long, just if you let it play straight through. So, and you see my videos, I like to be technical, I like to be detailed in my critique and in my assessment of stuff. So I will probably drag that 31 minutes out to 310 minutes. Hopefully not that long. I don't think it'll be that long, but no, it'll be long. And that's why I don't want to really break this down into more than one video. But I mean, you can always just see the time marker when you leave if you have to come back and start later. So we'll get rolling here and we'll see what they had to say about what I had to say about their claim. Now, I'll make this statement right here at the outset. Sometimes they use some what the Bible will call corrupt speech, Ephesians 4:29, filthy language out of your mouth, Colossians 3 and verse 8. They use language that's deemed, particularly in our culture, as adult speech. And so I wanted to make sure that at the outset people are aware of that, because I'm going to let it play straight through. That way people can hear for themselves what these guys are saying, because that's my approach to them. I don't go to Christian, quote unquote, Christian sources and say, well, what do the Hebrew Israelites teach? And then come online and talk about them. I listen to their videos. I listen to Sicarii Dallas. I listen to multiple sects of Hebrew Israelites. I listen to IUIC, many others. But I want to go to their videos, hear what they are saying themselves. That way, they can't say I'm, saying things they didn't say or whatever. I'm being as close to the source as I can be. So here we go.
We are the children of the one Yahweh. Ye are the chosen of the one Yahweh. And he has given this law to us.
And that's their typical opening bumper when they open up their videos. Sometimes they change them up, but you'll see that typically as you start the videos. It's actually a pretty good beat. I actually like it, to be honest. So, but here we go into the video now.
All right, first and foremost, I want to say, call along Yahweh, Ba'ashim, Yahweh Shai. That's all praise to the Most High God in the name of His only begotten Son, who the world ignorantly calls Jesus Christ, man.
So that's typically their normal introduction. They sort of have a statement they recite at the beginning of their sessions where they teach and all, and they hold their fists up and they recite their statement. And so that's normal. No issue with that there, of course. That's nothing I'm going to address in particular at this time. So anyway.
And today I want to basically, really tonight, I want to go into basically a response video, because we have our own personal scoffer for the Dallas channel.
So I'm their personal scoffer for the channel. I guess I've earned that title. Some of the things I've said, I'm their personal scholar for Dallas, which I've actually said, if you want to say scoffing, I've made many remarks on other channels as well, from their other guys out in Vegas and San Diego and other places as well, San Francisco. But they know, I guess they've seen me on here before, so I guess I've earned that status in their eyes as their personal scoffer. So
He goes by, he has two YouTube channels, Mr. X and the Polymagetic, or whatever the hell it is.
okay, so yeah, Polymagetic. That's the actual name of, see right there, Polymagetic. That's what he's trying to say. He can't apparently remember it or whatever, but there it is spelled out nice and clear for everybody to see. This is the channel he's referring to. I do have another one, but I've switched over. The first one he referenced Mr. X. That was my older one. I still have it, but this is the one I wanted to start using more when I address them, because this is where all my videos are. And I want to make sure that I'm not bouncing back between two channels and talking to them. So
he basically listens to our breakdowns and tries to debunk them and puts out his own rebuke videos on us, right?
And so let me be clear when I say this. When I listen to what they're saying, he says he listens to our breakdowns and tries to debunk them. Well, that's true, but I want everybody to know that when I approach what they're saying, I'm not going into it with the attitude of everything these guys are about to say is wrong. Let me just find out how it's wrong and then expose it to everybody else. That's not my mindset. Now, what they are saying and the claims that they make that I do know that they make are wrong. The ones that they make that are wrong, I do address those. But I don't come at these guys with the idea of, well, everything they're saying is wrong, so let me just find out a way to look to expose and show how it's wrong. That's not my attitude. So I want to make sure that people know that when I make these videos, it's not because I'm just over here just, looking for any angle at which to find out that they're wrong. That's not it. When they say something that is wrong because it contradicts the Bible, well, then yes, I'm going to say something at that point because it's not biblical. But I agree with them on many of the things they say. And so that's something that I don't know if they're aware of that. They may have seen me say that here or there in other videos. But it's not that my attitude is, I'm just going to go at these guys because point blank, they're wrong, period. So let's just work forward from there. That's not my attitude.
So the first thing, it's a whole collection too. It's pretty interesting. I'll give y'all
There, that's my collection as he's referring to.
a link too. I got it on my phone. So basically, one of his things was, I think one of the first ones was, how do we know that Deuteronomy 28 verse 68 is talking about the transatlantic slave trade? Crazy. Crazy. I mean, you just read it, you just, you just show that to a random person, and they're like, oh yeah, that sounds just like the transatlantic slave trade.
So, so he talks about the channel. He says, here's all my videos, and he's referring to these ones here. He says, I think he says, how do we know? Well, my video he's referring to is this series here, is Deuteronomy 28:68, the transatlantic slave trade. That's what it's talking about. And that's the one he's referencing there. And he turns around and then immediately dismisses it on as if it has a face value nonsense to suggest that it would mean anything else besides the transatlantic slave trade. He's like, you just read it, it's obvious. It's obvious. Like if you would just read that to anybody, they would think transatlantic slave trade. I don't know, first of all, that of a single person that has just, if you just read that passage to them, they think transatlantic slave trade. Now, I've seen plenty of times where people have that passage read to them, and then someone suggests to them, doesn't that sound like the transatlantic slave trade? Or they sort of lead the person in their thinking, and then they say, oh yeah, that sounds similar to it or sounds like it. Now, maybe someone has thought that before. Maybe someone has thought, you know what, that sounds like the transatlantic slave trade. But sounds like doesn't mean that's what it is. And so we have to be careful when we read a lot of things in the Bible. You can't just read something and say, well, that sounds like this. It must be that. That's why you have so many different false doctrines out there, different churches, different errors being taught, is because people will take something at face value and they run with it. And it's like, you need to stop and study your Bible more. You can't just take something that sounds like and then run off saying, I know what it means. The Bible, and here's what I would say, the more illiterate or ignorant somebody is, and I don't mean that as an insult, I'm just talking about people who don't know what the Bible says. The more people are ignorant or illiterate of what the Bible teaches, the more they're going to be prone to believe something like, hey, that sounds like this. That's that. If people would understand what the Bible says, they will know, hey, you know what? There may be some similarities, but that's not what the Bible's talking about because of other passages that demonstrate what that is actually referring to. So just because something sounds like something, which the transatlantic slave trade there's actually a contradicting ideas in Deuteronomy 28:68. So they couldn't be sounding like the transatlantic slave trade. Maybe if you took a certain element out of there, like bondage, perhaps. Yes, there was bondage in the transatlantic slave trade. But if you look at the passage as a whole, and I would just refer you to my videos at this point, I'm not going to go into that, you would see how that's true, that the passage just simply cannot be referring to the transatlantic slave trade. There's a mountain of biblical data that just militates against that. So let's go on up. See, it's a minute 17 in, and I'm already, man, how long into this video of myself that we're making here? So here we go.
So you give me Deuteronomy 28 verse 68. You give me Deuteronomy 28 verse 68 on your phone on the blue letter, right? I'm gonna give you his breakdown, and then I'm going to give it breakdown for it.
You're gonna give his breakdown?
Yeah, I'm gonna give his breakdown.
So this guy here in the middle, he's about to give you my breakdown of Deuteronomy 28:68. Let me just say this really clearly right now. If you want to actually know my breakdown of Deuteronomy 28:68, here's my website, or here's my channel, and there's 3 videos I made, part 1, part 2, and part 3, addressing Deuteronomy 28:68. If you want to know what my breakdown is, here is my breakdown right here. I know it's a lot there. That's understandable because there's a lot to say. And I didn't even exhaust the passage, Deuteronomy 28:68. There could be a whole lot more said. I'm just trying to be mindful of viewers because I don't want them to see the time stamps on these and be like, man, that's a lot. But then again, maybe some of y'all would like a good laid out, detailed discussion or about that. And that's fine. But here's my breakdown. That's the point. But he's going to try to sum up and understand. He's not going to be able to say this much. I'll listen to his video here. But anyways, just know that that's there for y'all to go to if you want to hear actually what I said myself about that passage.
Deuteronomy chapter 28 and verse 68. And Yahweh shall bring thee into Egypt.
Now hold on, we're giving his breakdown. Say it for me.
Okay. And the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships.
So he'll stop right there and say the word Egypt there is Mizraim. And see that means citizens of Egypt. That's what he said, citizens of Egypt. So he'll stop.
Okay, so let me stop right there. First of all, he said, let me just say real quick. They started reading, and Yahweh said, and they said, well, no, let's give his breakdown. He goes, oh, and then they turned around and said, and the Lord said. I'm not going to be picky on that. If they want to say Yahweh, that's fine. I mean, it is the Tetragrammaton in Deuteronomy 28:68, which I don't say Yahweh, I say Yahweh. But if they want to say Yahweh, that's fine. I'm not going to X them out because of that. And as a matter of fact, they lay claim to be the ones who translated the Septuagint. If you look at the Septuagint in Deuteronomy 28:68, it does not have Yahweh in there. It has Kurios, Lord. I'll let them deal with that. And so anyways, Deuteronomy 28:68, that's what they're reading here, and let's go forward with the text.
And with ships.
So he'll stop right there and say the word Egypt there is Mizraim. And see that means citizens of Egypt. That's what he said, citizens of Egypt. Or literally the place Egypt. Go ahead.
Okay, and that's true. It can refer to the people there. Egyptians is a way to translate Mizraim, is Egyptians, the people. Egypt can refer to the nation of people. It can refer to the land itself. So yeah, I'm okay.
Again with ships.
Yeah, again with ships. Go ahead. Because he's not going to. He didn't say anything. But to my knowledge, I didn't watch the whole thing. To my knowledge, he didn't say anything.
Now, folks, that should be a big teller right there to y'all. Did you hear what you just said?
He's not going to. He didn't say anything. But to my knowledge, I didn't watch the whole thing.
So he admits he did not watch the whole thing. So you have to take what he's going to say as far as my breakdown. You're going to have to take that with a grain of salt, because here's what I had to say about it here in these 3 videos. And then he admits that he did not watch the whole thing, but he's going to give you my breakdown. Yeah, okay. So anyways.
To my knowledge, he didn't say anything about the ships, even though if we was in Israel.
Okay.
The whole thing. To my knowledge, he didn't say anything about the ships, even though if we was in Israel, why would we need ships to go to Egypt? But that's a different.
Hang on just a second. I don't know why this is not working here.
Hold that. Get your phone real fast. See what the word straight means. Before we even go into the Hebrew.
Where I was. Sorry about that.
Why would we need ships to go to Egypt? But that's a different story. Keep the ships.
Again with ships.
Yeah, again with ships. Go ahead. Because he's not going to. He didn't say anything about. To my knowledge, I didn't watch the whole thing. To my knowledge, he didn't say anything about the ships. Even though, if we was in Israel, why would we need ships to go to Egypt? But that's a different story.
No, that's just silly. To suggest that argument means nothing. If we were in Israel, why would we need to go to Egypt in ships? It's not about need. It's about what's going to happen. It's not about God would take us to Egypt in ships because we need to go there by ship. That's not what it's saying. It's not about need. Yes, when they came out of the land, they walked on foot. They shred through the ground and walked all the way up there. But that's beside the point. They're trying to dismiss the idea on, well, since you don't need to go to Egypt by ship, therefore it must not have been a reference to going to Egypt. That's kind of what they're leaning towards. That's faulty reasoning, folks. If you look at the coasts of Palestine, you can take a straight shot right down to the northern coast of Egypt instead of having to go around the bottom along the Negev and then the Sinai Peninsula. You don't have to go tread across that land down that way. You can go by land or you can go straight by ship, either or. So whether they had to go there, whether it was a necessary thing or not to go there by ships, that's beside the point. It just says they will go back to Egypt with ships. And I did address the ships thing. He's going to mention that here.
Keep going.
By the way whereof I spoke unto thee, thou shalt see it no more again.
And it basically was saying, like, because that's quoting Deuteronomy 17 verse 16. He said, how do we know that? I'm gonna prove that too. Go ahead.
I didn't say anything in my video. See, this is where you have to watch what his breakdown is compared to what I said. I didn't say anything in my video about how do we know that that's Deuteronomy 17:16. As a matter of fact, I went there in my video and showed that was a reference to Deuteronomy 17:16, which goes back to, I believe it's Exodus 13:14, or is it 14:13. So that's not anything I claimed at all. I did not ask, how do we know that? That's not true.
And there ye shall be sold unto your enemies.
Yeah, and there you should be sold to your enemies. Yeah, go ahead.
For bondmen and bondwomen.
Yeah.
And no man shall buy you.
Yeah, the seed says no man shall buy you. So why are you saying that that this is a transatlantic slave trade? People bought y'all, man. That's foolishness, and that's a dumb breakdown, bro. Bought y'all, man. That's foolishness, and that's a dumb breakdown, bro.
So that's it, folks. There's his breakdown of what I had to say. Even though I had 67 minutes, which I understand, I'm not asking to put all that into his video, but there's a lot more he could have said than that. That's his breakdown of what I had to say, just like that there. And then he misrepresented some of the things I said. I didn't ask, how do we know Deuteronomy 17:16 is being quoted in Deuteronomy 28:68? So that's his breakdown of what I had to say. And so, like I said, if you want to see what I had to say, you can go look at my videos, or you can listen to me here, kind of sum up what he's saying as being correct or incorrect. But yeah, that's just not the case that you can just sum up my breakdown like that. And it's true. That's a good point. I mean, it does say no man shall buy you. And in the slave trade, they were bought. Big problem there, I would say.
It's plainly retarded. It's just because we can't be saved, they are not Israelites. That's what it boils down to.
Yeah. So that's what it boils down to is I know that I can't be saved deep down inside, so I'm just going to go at it now and just seek out to try to show that these guys aren't Israelites. That's just silly. That's totally false. I don't think that I can't be saved. I know full well the Bible teaches that I have the ability to be saved or not based on my response to the gospel. It's not a matter of I'm going out there to bring them down to my level because I can't be saved, so let me try to make it look like they can't be saved. That's not the idea at all, folks. That's not what it boils down to. It boils down to the fact that these guys are misrepresenting what God has said. They are saying something that God said that God did not say. And so in doing that, it's like bearing false witness. They basically have said God said something that he never said. And that's what they're doing with Deuteronomy 28:16. That's why I'm saying this. It's because of that. I don't want people to be fooled by these kind of things, this kind of trickery. That's what's going on. Is people are being tricked into believing these things. Of course, he said what I had to say was foolishness and retarded. And so I'll let y'all decide on that as you see what I have to say in my videos or here and compare it to what they're saying here or in some of their other videos that address that passage, Deuteronomy 28.
So let's get the actual breakdown on why it says what it says verbatim.
The
Go ahead.
actual. The actual breakdown.
Take it slow because we're going to get every big piece of it.
And the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt again with ships.
So he says, actually, read it again. Read it slow.
And the Lord shall bring thee into Egypt.
Stop right there, Egypt. Because he said it just means Mizraim, the people of Egypt, right? Click on that word, right?
Well, and that's true. Deuteronomy 28:68 does refer to Egypt. If the term referenced there is the Hebrew term Mitzrayim. If I can get this up here, make this to where y'all can see this clearly. We'll go down to Deuteronomy 28:68. And here is Egypt, Mitzrayim. Mitzrayim, okay? There we go. That's the word that's referenced there. That's the root word, of course. So let's go back.
This is how you know he's being the damn devil the Bible speaks to him, right? Because why?
Really?
He reads the first. He reads the first one. Let's see. Yeah, right here. Right here. Yeah, just read that.
Okay. Egypt, the Egyptians, double straits. The inhabitants or natives of Egypt.
So he's saying, see, it just means Egypt. He didn't even read that top part. He just read where it says the inhabitants or natives of Egypt.
Okay, here's where it went. Let's go back there again, folks. Go to my video. I believe I pulled this up as well. Here's the everything outline of biblical usage. Here's ways in which this Blue Letter Bible says the term Mitzrayim is used in the Bible. Locative noun, it's used as an adjective, all these right here, okay? And so if I missed anything in addressing here, that's fine. They can bring it up if it's a significant or relevant point. I don't mind that. Don't mind that at all. That's how we come to better understanding what the truth is and how we stand on firmer ground as far as what we're affirming. And so here's where they're going. We're on Blue Letter Bible. That's why I use this in these videos, because they use it, and it is a good tool. I agree. I like Blue Letter Bible. It's got a lot of available sources on here, so I would recommend it too. Not just using it for their sake, but this is what they use primarily, it seems. And so that way, I'm using only using the tools they're using as well. So they're going to go into a breakdown of Mitzrayim, and I'm going to try to go along with it here.
So he said, see, it just means actual Egypt. What are y'all talking about? And then he reads that part right here. Read that part right there.
Hey, a country at the northeastern section of Africa, adjacent to Palestine.
So,
adjacent. Country on the northeastern part of Palestine. Country at the northeastern section of Africa, adjacent to Palestine. Here's where he's reading right here. Okay, he's reading the proper locative noun form, Egypt, land of the Copts. That's what we're reading. He's going to say, I'm only referring to this, and that's it.
he's saying it either means the people from Egypt or the land Egypt. Why?
Right, and that's true. It's either the people from Egypt, Egyptians, or the land. I'm on board with that.
Y'all thinking that's America, right? Now watch this. Now read this
Hold up,
again.
let me
Now
get
where's
that
this Egypt equals?
Cut them off. So,
Watch this. Now y'all thinking that's America from Egypt or the land Egypt? Why are y'all thinking that's America, right?
and that's a good question. And that's my first thing. When I look at here and it says Egypt, the land of the Copts, or Egyptians, well, if someone says, well, that's talking about America, well, naturally, I'm going to ask the question, how do you know that? How do you know that's talking about America? How do you know it's not talking about Canada or some other place? I mean, when the word itself has no implication at all that it's talking about America or any other nation but Egypt, well, naturally, the question arises, how do you know? If we're going to look for what's true, if we're going to try to learn and see what's correct, that's only a proper question to ask, and not just simply say, well, it means this because so-and-so said so. That's how we get people who are misled, who are sheep, and who simply follow false teachers, is by simply just doing and listening to what others have said, instead of saying, I want to know for myself that this is what the Bible teaches. I hope we all would have that attitude.
Now watch this. Now read this again. Now where says Egyptian equals?
Egyptians equals double straits.
Equals double straits. This word is used for a thing or a noun, or it's also used as an adjective. That's why right there, what does that say right there?
Adjective.
Adjective.
Yeah, that's right. It is. It's used for a noun, proper locative noun, and it's also used as an adjective right there. Egypt is the land. Egyptians It's a reference to the people. The Egyptians is an adjective. It's describing them. They are Egyptian versus like I'm an American. I am American. If I said I am an American, that's more of a noun. But I am American is an adjective. The word Egyptian, like, so and so, Pharaoh was Egyptian. Pharaoh was not an Israelite. He was not other nations. He was an Egyptian. So yeah, adjective. No problem there.
So it's used to describe something or attribute something. It equals double straights. What does the word straight mean? You get your phone? Hold
Well,
that.
see, here's what's interesting is that Egyptians, it says double straights, and he says it's used to describe something. Now, this is going to be an interesting point here in just a moment, so watch, just pay attention here.
Get your phone real
And
fast.
I'm going to back it up a few
See
times
what the word straight means.
whenever I start the video and he's in the middle of talking, I want to back it up a few seconds just to make sure we're not missing something here.
It equals double straights. What does the word straight mean? You get your phone? Hold that. Get your phone real fast. See what the word straight means. Before we even go into the Hebrew, let's see what the word straight means. Because there's two. Yeah. It means two different definitions, right? One of them's literally water, and another one means distress.
Well, straight doesn't mean water. Straight is a reference to a geographical place that involves water, but it's not a reference to water. It's more of a, as you'll see, they'll bring it up here and actually say it for me. It's a narrow passageway forward, like the Bering Strait. It's not talking about water. It's talking about the passageway where the water passes through or resides in that area. It's the details, the contour of the of whatever situation, of whatever it's talking about. It's the description of the contour of it, the confinement of it. And he's going to bring these words out, and we're going to see what this talks about.
That's what it means. And we're going to prove it's the second one, because if you keep going to the root of that word, it's going to break it down. Watch. First one or second one? It should say Merriam-Webster. Go to Merriam-Webster. Now, read the first one.
God, definition of straight. A comparatively narrow passageway connecting two large bodies of water.
Yeah.
Right, it's the narrow passageway connecting bodies of water. So
often used in plural but singular in construction.
So it's one of the definitions it's talking about, basically river, water, whatever you want, whatever have you, right? What's the second definition?
A situation.
A what?
A situation.
A what?
A situation.
A situation. Go ahead.
Of perplexity.
Of what?
Perplexity.
Perplexity. Go ahead.
Or distress.
Or distress.
Okay. So they're breaking down. Well, he's looking up Merriam-Webster's definition of straight right now. So again, we're talking about a 20th or 21st century, depending on when they have their dictionary here, or they could have gone even older. Depends on what, when you look at, don't forget, when you look at dictionary definitions, English definition, you're talking about the English language instead of Greek, especially if you're looking at a 21st century updated or 20th century updated Greek dictionary. It's referring to here in our time. Remember, let me tell you one thing. Say one thing at this point. I heard it once said before, and it's very true. A dictionary is a historian, not a lawgiver. What that means is dictionaries don't tell us and prescribe the meaning of the word to us. They describe what that people at that time, how they use those words. Remember, words can change in how they are used over time. The meaning of a word has only with reference to the people who are using it amongst themselves. That's how a word has meaning, is what do they intend to communicate with that word, with that term. That's the meaning of it. And so when a dictionary is read, keep that in mind. It's not that dictionaries are wrong. I'm not saying that, but just remember that they are not the final arbiter as far as especially a 20th or 21st century English dictionary. If it's defining words that we're looking at in a book that was written a couple millennia ago or more, concerning which books of the Bible you're talking about, in a different language, in a different culture, that's going to play largely in how those words were understood. So just saying that. Now, I'm not saying I disagree with their definition of straight, but I'm just pointing that out. When people go to dictionaries, English dictionaries, that doesn't settle necessarily what the Bible's talking about. Okay. Or how the Bible's using those terms.
Now, when you say in America, as soon as we got here, we've been in a situation of perplexity and distress. What happened when we got here? Captivity. And watch this. Click the root. Click the root.
I would say it gets better with the definition.
Yeah, click the root word of Mizraim, right? Before you read it, what you got?
Look at this. Difficult.
Yeah, go ahead.
Causing distress. Difficult.
Yeah.
Limited as to means or resources. Strict. Rigorous.
That's captivity. I don't even gotta go into the. I'm going to the Hebrew, but it's the same thing, bro. It's saying the people of double straits, man. Double distress, complexity, compactness. Watch, it's gonna prove it, right? Yeah, there it is. That's the root, the complete root, all the way down to the bottom of the word Mizraim. Watch this.
Okay, so he finished the English definition, which that's fine. It can mean that. I have no problem with that. But remember, the English definition is standing on a lot of things under it in order for it to be true. So that's not going to be a conclusive definition. But let's see what he further has to say concerning the Hebrew. Now we're getting more closer to home. We're getting closer to home now by going to the Hebrew. Let's see what that has to say.
The word suwar in Hebrew, outline of biblical usage.
Now let me take you here to what he just said. The word, it's sur, and it's kind of like sewer with a roll on the R, sur. It's in Hebrew, and I'm not some master in Hebrew. I know what I know about Hebrew, though, and I know that part. And so what they've done is basically they've chased down the root of the word Mitzrayim here. And so it's going to go to here. I believe we go here. You see, we're going to go back and trace it back. The root word here, this is Matzor. And so let's go back further. We're just tracing the etymology, going to the root that they're landing at. Here we are. Here's where they've gone back through these roots, Sur. And so this is where they've gone to now to try to make their case of what Egypt is being discussed or defined as in the text of Deuteronomy 28. And so let's go here. Let's see what they have to say.
To bind.
Go ahead.
Besiege.
Yeah.
Confine. Crimp.
Captivity. It's captivity, bro.
Okay, so here we go. He's right. To bind, besiege, confine, cramp. This is the usage of the word sur in Hebrew. And they're going down this to this definition to show how the word is understood in these many different ways that we're going to look at here, or that we see here, rather.
The word literally means, the root of it is captivity.
Let me get this.
Okay, so he says the root literally means captivity. Now I'm going to sit out here and just say the word it says to bind, to besiege, to confine, or cramp. Now captivity, what they have to make the case for is that it necessarily refers to captivity of humans or a captivity of people. But captivity is a broad term. To bind something is a broad term that can be applied to many different situations, including people. But binding, besieging, confining can refer to many things that aren't people. Like you can bind together a bundle of sticks, for example. You can confine, all of my, furniture is confined to my home. There's several examples you could make to show that the word to bind, or the idea of binding something, confining something, isn't necessarily come with it the idea of binding people, confining people. It can be used to refer to people, but not just necessarily that. People aren't inherent in the understanding of the term. And that's something that we have to understand.
Go ahead. Oh, it gets better. It gets better. Go ahead.
This is the second one. To show hostility to, be an adversary, treat as foe.
Yeah, keep going.
To form, fashion, delineate.
Yeah, keep it there. Go to the Strong's definition, right?
Strong's definition.
Yeah.
Suwar. To cramp.
To cramp. What is that? Cramp. What is cramp and confine? What's that? That word confine, right?
Confine.
What is that? Captivity. Just like if you have an animal and they say they're going to put him in captivity, what do? They put him in a cage smaller than its actual habitat. That's talking about captivity. It's the word Mizraim is, yes, it's used for the land, it's used for the people, but it also equals captivity or distress or perplexity, man. Go ahead, look at this more.
Oh, let me just keep going.
To cramp, i.e. confine.
Yeah, to what?
I.e. confined.
Now, when you're confined, what does that mean? If you're confined to a cell, what does that mean?
Well, you ain't going nowhere.
You're not going nowhere. Captivity. You're a captive in a jail cell, man. Aren't we a people robbed and spoiled and thrown in prison houses? What is that? Captivity in America. This is why you can't just listen to idiots on the internet, bro. You have to just look into words and look what they actually mean, right?
Okay. So what he's saying is, notice what last thing he says. First of all, you can't be listening to idiots on the internet. That's the implication there. I'm an idiot on the internet. And so he's going to this passage, or on this passage, this term, and he's left the word Mitzrayim altogether and gone down to the root for it, sur. And he's trying to say, look, it refers to bind, besiege. It can refer to cramp, confine. What is that talking about? And what he's doing is, if you listen to what he's saying, he's assuming that it has to refer to necessarily, because I'm not saying it can't refer to, but he's saying it must be referring to people. Which that not doing all this, even if it did, it's not going to help his case at all, because he has a lot more to build than just proving that the root word means confining of people, to necessarily say, well, then Mitzrayim and Deuteronomy 20:68 must mean slavery. So he says confine here, he brings that up, but confine does not necessarily refer to confining people. Remember, he's talking about a primitive root. This is a verb, folks. It's a verb. Sur is describing action. It's not necessarily describing who is receiving the action, like what or who the action is being performed upon. It could be performed upon, I could hit my car. I could hit a person. I could hit this table. Hit is the verb, but table, car, person is not inherent in the definition of the word to hit or the verb to hit. It just means the action involved. Sword is a verb, to confine, to secure, to cramp, besiege, bind, but it's not telling you necessarily what is being confined, who is being confined or binded or bound or cramped. That has to be revealed in the text. The text will show you the noun upon which or the object, direct object or whoever is receiving the action of the verb. So you see, they're defining a verb here, but they're assuming that it tells you the noun or the direct object that's going to be or indirect object, whatever. The noun that's going to be receiving the action is not inherent in the definition of the verb. It's just describing the action alone. So he's going to have to prove that, yes, it refers to bind and besiege and confine, but is it also necessarily referring to people? That's not necessarily the case. Here's how I know that. Look at this. You go down to, here's passages that use this verb sword right here. The passages wherein that term appears in different forms, by the way. Look at Exodus 32 and verse 4, for example. He received them at their hand and what? Fashioned it with a graving tool after he had made it a molten calf. Oh, so what are we talking about here? See, this is not referring to people. This is talking about making the golden calf. That is what's being described here as being the object of the sword, of the confining, of the cramping. It's being, shaped into this manner. That's Exodus 2 and verse 4. And so the objects that were used, that were donated, because if you go to Exodus 32, it's talking about there that they gave, let me just jump there real quick. Exodus 32 verse 4, all the people break off the gold earrings which were in their ears and brought them unto Aaron, and he received them at their hand and did what? And fashioned it. Let me just go to the New King James here, because that's what I normally use. Exodus 32:4. All right. The people broke off their golden earrings, which were in their ears, brought them to Aaron. He received the gold from their hand, and he fashioned it. That's our word, sword. He fashioned. That's the word. It's a verb. He fashioned it. It's the action. But it doesn't tell us necessarily what is being fashioned. The text has to reveal it. What is the text revealing to us as being the subject of the verb here? He fashioned it. Well, what's it? It's talking about the gold, though that was added in. It's a reference back to the golden earrings. the golden earrings were fashioned. Here's what is being fashioned, not people, but pieces of gold that people would hang in their ears. So he has to prove that this term sur is a reference to, ultimately to the word of, excuse me, I'm getting lost here, I'm doing. That is a reference to necessarily refers to people, which it doesn't. It can refer to people, but not necessarily.
Now you give me Exodus 20, verse 2. It's like bread and butter. Go to that. Exodus 20, verse 2.
Like bread and butter. Just that easy, huh? Simple. Now watch. That's how I feel about answering some of this stuff. It's just very quite simple to see through many of these things. Here's what interesting part I want to bring out that he pointed out a minute ago, folks. He talked about, where were we here? Let me just go back to the text here in Deuteronomy 28. It's going to have to back up a little bit. And so he talked about Deuteronomy 28 and verse 68. He said, oh, look, the term, well, actually, I want to go right back to where I was. He says, look, the term can refer to not just, that is, Mitzrayim. It can refer to not just a locative noun. He says it can be an adjective describing something. And so they're going to try to make the case that Egypt is describing something. The noun form is referring to the land, but the adjective is describing this double straits. It's just, they're trying to say that it's describing this bondage. And that's what Moses is saying in Deuteronomy 28. They're going to go back to this bondage, this double straits. But here's a problem, folks. Let me go to Bible Hub. I want to show you something. This is, again, shows you what just simple Bible study can show you, can reveal a lot to you. And I just hope that all of us could do this. Nope, that's not what I want. Where was I here? I was just there. Is this where I am here? Yeah, here we go. I want to go to Deuteronomy 28. And I would encourage y'all to, this is a pretty good site too. It's got a lot of good tools on it. Deuteronomy 28 and go all the way down to, let's just go to verse 68 here. Now I'll go to Hebrew. Now, here we go. There's our word Mitzrayim in the Hebrew, right? Deuteronomy 28:68. They said, he says, and he's right, the word Mitzrayim, right here, can be, and it's an adjective or proper locative noun. And he says, look, it can also refer to, it be an adjective describing something. Well, let's just see what appears in the text of Deuteronomy 28:68. Do we have a verb? Whoops. No, we don't. We have a noun, proper noun, feminine singular, appearing in Deuteronomy 28:68. So what does that tell us? Does that tell us that Egyptians and double straits is what's being referenced in Deuteronomy 28:68? No, folks. That's the adjective form. In Deuteronomy 28:68, we have what? The noun form of Mitzrayim, the noun form, which is a reference to what? Egypt, the land of Copts, which is what I said in my videos. If we just go back and listen to me give my breakdown and not listen to his breakdown necessarily, and you'll see for yourself, this is what I had said all along. And so this just shows how, and folks, see how quick that was to pull that up? It didn't take me but a minute to pull this up and show you that such a simplistic understanding of the Bible is easily shown to be false. Guys, do your proper study, guys. Come with more than just say, you got to do better than just simply saying, oh, it's, you know, it has an adjective form, therefore it's describing bondage. It's not talking about the land. Well, just because it has an adjective form, is that what's in the text? No, we know that just because we look in here. It's a noun, proper noun, Egypt, the land. That's what we're talking about in Deuteronomy 28:68. Plain and simple. It's not easy to show, folks. But when you are so bent and so driven to this understanding that it has to mean the transatlantic slave trade, such simple things are going to be extremely difficult to grasp. This is what Jesus spoke about in Isaiah 6 when he told Isaiah, you know, that you tell the people that, you know, seeing they shall see and not understand, hearing they'll hear and not know, they will not understand these things. Their hearts have been hardened. That's exactly what we have here, folks. Textbook case. But let's go on. Let's go on here. I'm going to have to stop this, and I'm going to run out of time in a minute anyway, so I'm going to stop probably around the 10-minute marker and continue.
The book of Exodus, chapter 20, and verse 2. I am the Lord thy God,
Yeah.
which have brought thee out of the land of Egypt.
The land of Egypt. And what else does it call it?
Out of the house of bondage.
Out of the house of bondage. We know bondage is captivity specifically.
The book of Revelation, chapter.
Okay, quick reference to that. It's actually kind of sad, but okay. He goes to Exodus 20, verse 2. I am the Lord your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. And he's using this to try to show, I guess, that, oh, look, see, it specifically refers to bondage. Well, folks, if Egypt means bondage according to them, if that's what it's talking about, if it's not talking about the land of bondage, if it's not talking about the land, if it's talking about bondage, why would God have to further state the house of bondage then? If this means bondage, that would be equivalent to Moses writing, I am the Lord your God, and God speaking to Moses saying, I am the Lord your God who brought you out of the land of bondage, out of the house of bondage. Is God redundant like that and just repeats himself? Folks, we said before, then they showed it on the thing that it can refer to this idea of, Egypt rather, excuse me. The definition of Egypt is a reference to the land, or it can refer to Egyptians, okay? When God wants to refer to the land and have people give people the idea of bondage, he puts it right there in the text to drive our minds into understanding what he's talking about. The land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. That's when God wants to use Egypt and have us understand the idea of the bondage related to it. He brings it into the text. This phrase, when you see, folks, the land of Egypt, you look up a search for the house of bondage, house of bondage. Every time you're going to see this term, it's going to be, Egypt's going to be right there in the text with it. Because this identifies the bondage that they had in mind. The bondage that was down in Egypt, a specific bondage, not just this idea of bondage, whether it be in here, there, this century, that century. No, a specific bondage is what God had in mind. And so Exodus 22 is simply a parallel statement. The land of Egypt, the house of bondage. Land of Egypt refers to just that, land of Egypt, the place down on that map, the house of bondage. That's what that place is being referred to as, the house of bondage. And so, folks, this is just, again, it's a very, I wish these guys would do, but I know they're smarter than that. I know they're smarter than that. I think they're just so convinced of their doctrine. This shows, I think, the weakness of the position they're trying to maintain. And let me just say this real quick. I don't know these guys personally. I haven't met them before. I've never interacted with them directly as far as I know. Maybe on a YouTube comment on one of their videos, but they've never revealed who they are exactly on there, so I don't know. I wouldn't know. I don't have any personal problems with them. They may be some very likable guys. I don't know. But what they're saying, though, is just really palpably false. And they can do a lot better than this. They can do a lot better than this.
Chapter 11 and verse 8. And their dead bodies shall lie in the street of the great city.
Okay.
Yeah, in the great city. This is talking about
Book of Revelation, chapter 11 and verse 8. And their dead bodies shall lie in the street of the great city.
Yeah, in the great city. This is talking about Babylon, right? Like contextually, it's talking about Babylon. So they say, y'all. He said, y'all. You should think it's crazy to think that this is talking about America. It clearly says Egypt. Now read this.
Which spiritually,
yeah,
is called Sodom.
It's called Sodom. You can tell this is Sodom, bro. Homosexuality is exalted here. You got the rainbow lights behind us, man. This is Sodom. Where's you don't see homosexuality paraded around like you see in America, right? Go ahead.
Hey, a brother said he put up a post like.
Okay, let me stop right there and say something. He goes to, boy, this was a mistake. Revelation 11 and verse 8. Okay. He admits, okay, in the video, he admits that Revelation 11:8 is talking about their dead bodies will lie in the street of the great city. Now, you heard him. This is why, like I said, I listen to them. I don't listen to what other people say. I listen to them. You heard him say that the great city is Babylon, okay? That's what he said, not me. You just go back and watch it for yourselves. The Babylon is the great city, which is spiritually called Sodom and Egypt. Now, there's a whole lot I could say on this, and that's going to have to be for another video about spiritual references to places being called Sodom and Egypt. He admitted the city here is reference to Babylon. Then he says, well, notice his reference, his effort to really try to maybe convince that America is Sodom. Well, who else exalts homosexuality like America? Well, there are a number of places around the world where homosexuality is okay, is exalted. But the fact that there's exaltation in America, which there are a lot of Americans who are not for it as well. It's not like the whole nation's just, we don't care about homosexuals and they can do whatever they want. That's fine. No, there are actually a lot of people against it. But just simply because, this goes back to that looks like, sounds like necessarily means that's it. That's not true. Just because you see people in America or a large population of America exalting homosexuality, that doesn't mean we're the Sodom of Revelation 11:8. How do you make that conclusion from that? That's just totally bogus reasoning, y'all. It's totally false. I don't know where he's getting this idea, but here's the really the part I wanted to get at. And I still would like an answer because I've actually asked this question on some of their comment section on their videos. The great city, which he said is Babylon. If this is Babylon, and which is spiritually called Sodom and Egypt, then tell me, folks, Hebrew Israelites, where was our Lord crucified? Where was Jesus crucified? Because Jesus through John says what? Their dead bodies will lie in the street of the great city, which spiritually is called Sodom and Egypt, where also, what do you mean where also? The great city is where also the Lord was crucified. If you can find out what city wherein Jesus was crucified, you will have identified the great city of Revelation 11:8. You will have identified that city which is spiritually called Sodom and Egypt. And folks, I would suggest to you right away, without much effort, and if I really would think it would require little effort to show you or convince you that Jesus was crucified outside the city of Jerusalem. That's where he was crucified. Jerusalem, folks, in Revelation is the great city. Jerusalem is that which is called the spiritual Sodom and Egypt. Jerusalem is the whore, the harlot of Revelation 18, who is riding on the beast. That is Jerusalem. This whole book of Revelation is a reference to the desolation that will come upon the city as Jesus demanded, or Jesus said would occur in the Olivet Discourse. This is the Olivet Discourse fulfilled, or being spoken, I should say fulfilled, being spoken of by John in his version of it. And so, folks, this shows you really how messed up it is, because this is very dangerous. If someone can say this is referring to America, because he said this is the great city, was referring to Babylon, and then he says, Babylon and Sodom, spiritually called Sodom, and America, look at us, so this must be Sodom. America must be Sodom. America must be Egypt, spiritually speaking. The great city, notice the great city, not necessarily the great nation. That must be a reference to America. Well, if that's the case, I guess Jesus was crucified in America. Because Jesus, through John, said that this great city is where Jesus was crucified. So, folks, I think that's pretty obvious of how clumsy this hermeneutic is and how clumsy we are exegeting Scripture here, how clumsily we're exegeting Scripture. A lot more could be said. Just read Isaiah 1 and Isaiah 1 down through, I believe it's verses 10, 11, and 12 there. You'll see there where God refers to Israel, Judah, and Jerusalem. He refers to them as you rulers of Sodom, you people of Gomorrah. Israel is referred to as Sodom and Gomorrah in Isaiah 1 in a spiritual sense. This city here is spiritually called Sodom as well. Egypt, we have references to that to Jerusalem, which we'll talk about that more. I have no problem doing that. I just want to get off the course here. So I'm about to just stop in here in just a minute. But yeah, folks, this is really bad. And I know these guys are smarter than this. I know they are. I wish they would come out of this stuff. I really do. Because it's sad to see people so steeped in something that's so simplistic and so easy to understand as being incorrect.
Like how did they
Okay, he's gonna.
parade
This guy here is about to say something about something I
around like you see in America, right? Go ahead.
Hey, a brother said he put up a post like how did they get people to think that homosexuality was right when polygyny is wrong?
Wow.
Okay, that's he must be referencing somebody else because I don't know what that's talking about there.
Wait, God, really? It's America, right? Get that.
Which is spiritually called Sodom and Egypt.
And what?
And Egypt.
And Egypt. So there would be a place that was spiritually Egypt, man. And this is Babylon. And most people, like even most Christians, I had a Christian at my job
So once again, he says this is Babylon in Revelation
tell me
11:8.
this was Babylon.
He just said Revelation 11:8 once again is Babylon.
Babylon. And most people, like even most Christians, I had a Christian at my job tell me this was Babylon, bro. At my job, a Christian Edomite too. A Christian Edomite said, "Yeah, man, this is Babylon." They're waking up.
And that's unfortunate because that Christian is wrong. That Babylon is not America. They're wrong on that.
But basically, like he said, we're foolish to think this is anything outside of Egypt. But wait a minute, there's going to be a second Babylon, and that place is also going to be the second Egypt.
There you go.
So that's what this is talking about. Because it says their dead bodies shall lie. Read that verse again.
And their dead bodies shall lie in the street of the great city.
And that's what it is now. Because those who wander away from what is that in Proverbs? Who wandereth out of the way of wisdom, way of understanding. So give me that. Give me that. Give me that real fast.
Proverbs 21:16.
Yeah.
The man that wandereth out of the way of understanding shall remain in the congregation of the dead.
No, wait, let's explain this, right? I'm going to give this even more context. Hold what you got. Give me Deuteronomy 28, verse 48, right? Let's give this even greater context. To prove this is talking about, to connect all this, to prove this is talking about us and our dead bodies lying in Babylon and in the streets, man. Watch this.
Deuteronomy 28, verse 48. Therefore shalt thou serve thy enemies, which the Lord shall send against thee, in hunger and in thirst.
That's happened when we got here, and it's happening to this day. We have to go to the so-called white man for everything. Go ahead.
And in nakedness.
They have to go to the white man for everything. Okay, that's off topic. I'll talk about that some other time. We're talking about Deuteronomy 28:68 here, so but yeah, they have to go to the white man for everything.
And in want of all things,
Yeah.
and he shall put a yoke of iron upon thy neck, until he have destroyed thee.
And tell you what?
Destroyed thee.
Now, if you look in the Hebrew, that word's going into utterly waste, just kill, destroy. Now, we know this, we're still here right now, so that's not talking about a physical destruction, that's talking about a mental and spiritual destruction, man. They've made us, since we've been so disenfranchised, we continue to walk in the way we continue not to walk in the way of understanding. That's why it says that. Now, go back to Proverbs.
So they're going back in the text of Deuteronomy 28, and I won't really get on that this moment because I want to try to stick. I mean, this is already going to be long. I want to stick as much as I can here to Deuteronomy 28:68. They're going back to verse 48. Let me just say in brief, and this is not a proof. I'm not trying to prove it. I'm just stating Deuteronomy 28 and Leviticus 26 are the curses and promises, the cursings and blessings, or blessings and curses, if you want to look at it in the order they're given, that God gave to Israel, to the generation that came out of Egypt, and to that next generation was going into the land, Leviticus and Deuteronomy. Basically, Moses telling the people, you have the commands given, you have what God expects of you. Well, we've stated that. And now, these are the conditions of the covenant. If you are going to obey me, then everything will be good. If you're not going to obey me, then things are going to be bad. And so those are the blessings, the promises, and the blessings and the curses of the covenant. Yes, front door. And so Deuteronomy 28 is not referencing necessarily a specific time only. Deuteronomy 28 is basically telling Israel that every time they break the covenant or keep the covenant, this is what they can expect. And several times throughout the Old Testament, throughout the Old Covenant, we see Israel breaking their covenant with God. We see it with the Assyrian captivity was punishment on them for their faithlessness. Book of Hosea. The Babylonian captivity was also a reference. Daniel 9. Daniel talks about how they're in captivity because of the curses. The curses are there. This is the curses they're going through. The curse that's written in the law. They were there because they disobeyed, and therefore Deuteronomy 28 was brought upon them there. And then ultimately, Deuteronomy 28 was the ultimate, if you want to say the fulfillment of that. It was the antitype, was a reference to them being destroyed once for all in AD 70 when Rome came and sieged the city, and they were done. It has nothing to do with America today. So when they bring up Deuteronomy 28 and all these other passages, that all has application to things in the past. There's no more Deuteronomy 28 is still being applied, and if they keep the covenant, God will restore them. That's not the case at all. But that's another video, because that's a lot to say. But when they bring up these passages here, that's just not the case. They want to bring up those passages and apply them to America, just like verse 68. They want to apply it to America as well.
Go back to Proverbs.
Proverbs 21 and 16.
Yeah.
The man that wandereth out of the way of understanding
Yeah.
shall remain in the congregation of the dead.
So since we got this franchise, we continue to walk in the way of these churches and walk in the way of however the white man set us up to be. So we continue to be walking dead in America. We're the congregation of the dead. Now read that.
The book of Revelation, chapter 11 and verse 8.
Yeah.
And their dead bodies
Yeah.
shall lie in the street of the great city,
Yeah.
which spiritually is called Sodom and Egypt.
And we fit that because we're walking around. Look at us, man. We walk around Dallas, Texas with a cigar in our mouth and got a place to piss in. And you gonna tell me this people ain't destroyed? You gonna tell me like they're living. That's living. Living is walking around Dallas, Texas late at night with a cigar in your mouth and got a pot to piss in. No, that's destroyed. You're a dead body in America. You're a dead body lying in the streets, literally. Because look, there's nothing but streets here, bro. And there's nothing in downtown.
So notice how they're just simply not reading, and maybe he will. We'll wait and see. But they're not reading this last part and exegeting that at all. And that's pretty suspicious. I wonder why. And I would like to know why. And if they do say it later in the video, then good. I would like to at least hear them say something about it. But this here, the dead bodies lying in the street of the great city, this is talking about, like I said, as I said earlier, this is talking about the great city where our Lord was crucified. This is talking about Jerusalem. And this whole book of Revelation is talking about the judgment that was coming upon them in AD 70 and God glorifying the church through their destruction by showing who the true people of God were. It's Jesus' kingdom, his church, not the physical nation of Israel. And those Israelites who did not follow the Messiah and did not place their faith in the Messiah died at the hand of Rome in AD 70. And their dead bodies were lying in the streets of the great city. That's talking about those Israelites who were killed by Rome in AD 70. Those who rejected the Messiah. Jesus warned of that impending doom in Matthew 24, Luke 21, Mark 13. He warned of it. And then John is talking about this is what's going to happen in that day when that happens. Their dead bodies, those who rejected the Messiah, those who rejected Jesus, their dead bodies will lie in the street of the great city, that is Jerusalem, where our Lord is crucified, which is also the spiritual Sodom, as I said in Isaiah 1, and also Egypt as well. Off the top of my head, I can't remember, but I can try to come back with something on that later. But I know definitely Jerusalem is referred to Egypt in the Old Covenant as well. So this all fits in just fine. He admitted, I don't have to even prove it, it's Babylon. He admitted it's talking about Babylon as well. So anyway, let me go ahead and find a stopping point here.
Except streets and skyscrapers, man. Yeah. So we're lying dead there. But that's not the point I wanted to make. Read that again, and I want to make my point.
And their dead bodies shall lie in the street of the great city, which spiritually is called Sodom and Egypt.
Sodom and Egypt, right? What's the Washington Monument? It's an obelisk. Yeah. So, like something specifically taken from Egypt. Yeah. Who has a
Wow. So an obelisk is something specific to Egypt. So it must mean that America,
dollar bill,
because that's on the back of the America. Well, that must mean America must be that Egypt.
Dollar bill, man. I got a 20. Who has a one? I need a one. There you go,
You
right?
ain't that, bro.
What's that? What's this? What is this, bro? What is this right here? Why is this here? What about a dollar symbolizes Egypt? So, I mean, how much clearer?
So there's the power of Hebrew Israelite doctrine, folks. Because a dollar bill has a pyramid on the back of it, it must be that we, America, is the Egypt of Revelation 11 and verse 8. Case closed. If you next time you want to don't even go debate, you want to talk about who is Egypt of Revelation 11:8, just whip out that dollar bill. That's all you got to say, and don't go any other Bible references. Don't close your Bibles. Dollar bill in my hand. That's it. That's how we know. Really, that's the strength of the doctrine. That's the case set forth. Is at least what people tend to offer their more strong arguments up front. That would be what you would consider one of your stronger reasons. Folks, if I'm not mistaken, and I would encourage you to do a search on this. Do you know where most of the pyramids that are on the earth are built, and where they were built? Central and the Central and South America, yeah. So I guess since they have pyramids, actual pyramids built, that's even strong. That he's talking about a dollar bill. They have actual pyramids. So that means, I guess, maybe they're really the true Babylon and Egypt. The true Egypt of Revelation 11 is somewhere down in Central South America. Someone could turn around and say that. Well, hey, you point out that dollar bill, but these folks down here actually have pyramids in their land. And you want to say the dollar bill is proof that America is the Egypt of Revelation 11 and 8. Wow.
Where could it possibly be, bro? That's America. We're gonna walk around dead in a place was filled with homosexuality, and this is spiritually Egypt. Because guess what? They promote all of Egypt things. They promote items of Egypt. They got the damn obelisk in Washington, in the capital of America. They have a damn obelisk. And guess what? We serve captivity here, just like how we did in Exodus, man. The same thing. It's the same thing.
Rigor.
It's rigor. It's very laborious work, like I'm gonna have the heathen do when I get my kingdom. Man.
That's right.
So basically, he said it's foolish for us to think that this means America, but evidently there's another America, and we proved that it's Babylon. If that's not Babylon, which is America, I don't know what is, man. I need a breakdown of Revelation 11 verse 8 from this man, actually, because that's literally telling you there's gonna be another Egypt.
Thank you. Did you hear
It is, man. I need a breakdown of Revelation 11 verse 8 from this man, actually.
Okay, and he can just see back the last few minutes. I've made that point. Where was I? He said, I need a breakdown of Revelation 11 verse 8 of this from this man. That's pretty much what I just did little by little over the last several minutes here. Their dead bodies. Remember, this is what I have just had a trouble understanding concerning. I'm kind of wandering off course a little bit here, but let me make this brief. I'm just kind of emphasizing what I just said, just with a couple other angles here. When Revelation was written, it says, look at this, folks, the revelation of Jesus Christ, which God gave him to show his servants things which must what? Must shortly take place. This is in the 1st century, okay? He sent and signified it by his angel to his servant John. The things that John were shown, the things that God showed John through Jesus Christ were things which must shortly take place. These guys have revelation still yet to come. Still yet to be go, or some of it, actually, let's say some of it's being fulfilled now concerning the trumpets. But folks, things which must shortly take place, if that has any meaning at all, how can we even begin to stretch it to a 2,000 year later and more fulfillment according to what these guys and many other folks say? So notice this, Revelation 1, things which must surely take place. And notice, blessed is he who keeps and who hears the words, and those who hear the words of this prophecy and keep those things which are written in it. Why? For the time is near. The time is at hand. You look at the statements in the Bible that talk about things being at hand, things being near at hand. It's always with reference to folks in that generation, and more specifically, usually within a few years, like single-digit years. At hand is basically a reference saying that you are going to witness these things. These things are about to come upon you, the audience that was being spoken to by the prophet or whoever. That's Revelation 1:1 and Revelation 1:3. If you go down to the end of the book, Revelation 22, you'll see there that the same thing is said concerning the book and the things written therein. Revelation 22:6. These words are faithful and true. The Lord God of the holy prophets sent his angel to show his servants the things which must shortly take place. There it is once again. Look at verse 10. Do not seal the words of the prophecy of this book. Why? For the time is at hand. This is the beginning, Revelation 1, and then Revelation 22, the end of the book. From the beginning to the end, or at the beginning and at the end, God says the things that are written are at hand. The time is at hand. The things that are written therein are things which must shortly come to pass. That's the whole book. That's not talking about the entire or from like a certain section of it. That's talking about all the things written in there were things which must shortly come to pass, things which were at hand. But he talks about in Revelation 11 and verse 8, and you can go ahead. You can go ahead and start. Revelation 11 and verse 8, he says he wanted a breakdown. I'm not going to give a big long breakdown here because I already spoke a lot about it already, but I'll just reemphasize what I said. Their dead bodies is talking about, remember, things which must shortly take place. Time is at hand. So I was saying it was referring to that generation of people who were at the time in the first century. Matthew 23:36. All these things will come upon this generation. Matthew 24:34. These things, it says there, all these things will take place. This generation will not pass away, will by no means pass away till all these things take place. What things, Jesus? All that I've said here and will continue to say in my discourse here, the Olivet Discourse, talking about the end of the city, the end of the age, verse 3, Matthew 24:3. So their dead bodies, folks, is talking about the Jews who were killed in the fall of the city by Rome, a great city, Jerusalem, AD 70. That city, which was spiritually called Sodom, which I said Isaiah 1. Look at the first, just look at the chapter. I think it's within the first Isaiah 1:10, Isaiah 1:11 or 12. Right in there, it refers to, we see a reference, and that's not the only time. I'm just thinking off the top of my head here, where God does refer to Israel, or rather Judah and Jerusalem specifically, spiritually as Sodom and Egypt, but that's not in that text there. But I'm trying to remember off the top of my head. But I know that Israel is referred to as Egypt, Jerusalem and Judah. Jerusalem and Judah are in the Old Testament. And then it says, where also our Lord was crucified. That was in Jerusalem. So, folks, I mean, Isaiah 1, Israel, or Jerusalem and Judah, called Sodom. In this case, Jerusalem. That was called Sodom in Isaiah 1. The Lord was crucified in Jerusalem. The dead bodies would lie in the street of the great city. That's talking about those Israelites who rejected Jesus, never put their faith in the Messiah, who rebelled against the church, who rebelled against the apostles, persecuted them. That persecution was brought to an end in AD 70 when Rome put its hand on the city and brought it down to the ground. And the dead bodies of those rebellious Israelites were the ones who were laying in the streets of the city of Jerusalem. That's what it's talking about in the Revelation 11 and verse 8. So that's my brief breakdown, friend. And
because that's literally telling you there's going to be another Egypt.
Yeah, there was another Egypt, and it already came to pass, and that Egypt has been dealt with by God. It's over.
Who's done this? Right? Now go back to real quick.
Bring that dollar back out. Bring that dollar back out.
Get the dollar back.
What's this? And what's that? What's this and what's that?
This is the ancient symbol for Egypt.
So this isn't Egypt, but both symbols on the damn dollar is a symbol from Egypt. So that's just a coincidence. It's not focused.
So what? So what that both symbols are there? That's not a proof that the Bible is therefore talking about America. Guys, this is pretty shallow. You have to be a little more discerning than this. You can't just be so loose in assigning who the Bible's talking about just because there's a symbol on our dollar here that is a symbol of a structure built in Egypt, especially when it's one of the wonders of the world. You'd expect to see that image appear in other places because of the fact of such a great structure is impressive. People are obviously going to make emblems and images of it other places. That's just common sense. That's just natural. Doesn't mean that therefore that place must be the Babylon or the Egypt of Revelation 11.
Can you see it?
All right, got both.
Yeah, that image didn't come through very well.
You got both? You got both? Yeah, so you're going to tell me that's a coincidence now. So now it's a coincidence. That both images on the currency, the thing that runs the backbone of America, because America is a merchant.
I didn't even know that.
Yeah, I forgot. I was thinking that too. America is dollar bill is the backbone of America. This is a merchant nation, man. Everything America survives off of trade. That's like almost damn near 100% of their wealth is freaking imports and exports, bro.
That part.
America ain't got nothing here, bro. So the backbone of that has both symbols from Egypt, and in the capital of America is an obelisk. So that's just a coincidence now? Foolishness, man.
He got the pyramids with the Sphinx.
What?
They're right next to the river.
What's that there then? What's that for then?
Yeah.
Las Vegas got it too.
Yeah. That's right.
What's that there for? So that's just so we just gonna just write it up. Well, I mean, I guess it's a coincidence. No, man. This is spiritually Egypt. So this is the Egypt that instead we're gonna go into. We're gonna prove it. Go back to Deuteronomy 28 verse 68.
Okay, I'm gonna stop there. I have to stop because I have to go now, and it's been a while. But I'm gonna pick up more. If you look at the markers, 1640. I'll try to pick up there on the next video. We're talking about the topic of. He said he's gonna go back to Deuteronomy 28:68 now, so we'll pick up there. Appreciate y'all taking the time. I know it's been a long video. Watch it at your own pace, of course. And please feel free to leave any comments or questions in the section below, and I will get around to it. Have a wonderful day.